Keeping children safe in school is of utmost importance. While instances of active shooters in schools are very rare, the media attention such incidents receive has increased general anxiety about this issue. School administrations recognize that they need to exercise caution, including the implementation of specific procedures in emergency situations. To talk about the ALICE training being introduced in Arlington schools, we welcome Superintendent Dr. Kathleen Bodie, School Resource Officer Stephen Porcello, and Arlington Public Schools Court Liaison Cindy Sheridan-Curran. Thank you so much for joining us. So we'll dive right into it. What is ALICE? What does the acronym stand for, and would you happen to know when this program was established?
Sure. So ALICE is an acronym. It stands for Alert, Lockdown, Inform, Counter, and Evacuate. And what it does is we currently have basically just lockdowns and shelter in place in our school systems. What ALICE does is it enhances the current system that we have, and it empowers the faculty members and the students within the building to make decisions, real-time decisions based on the information that they have at any given time. So rather than just lock down into a classroom, if the information that's given to them dictates that they may want to leave the building, then they can leave the building.
Okay, and do we know when this was started? Where was it implemented first?
This began in Texas. There's a man by the name of Greg Crane. He is a law enforcement officer down there, and his wife is a teacher. And all these tragedies that were occurring in schools really made them sit down and think about this, and they put this together, and it's really become popular.
Great. And just to clarify to everyone, what are your roles in Arlington Public Schools, and what role would you be performing while implementing ALICE?
Well, my role, as you know, is the superintendent, and in order for a program that is going to be so widespread and involve the entire district eventually, it's my job to make sure that all of the necessary information goes out to parents as well as staff, to provide timelines for the training, and to make sure that we continually implement the training once we've done the initial training.
The system itself, I wear many different hats. I mean, first and foremost, I'm a police officer, but I'm also a teacher, a mentor, a guidance counselor. I do a little bit of everything, I would say, in the Arlington Public Schools, on top of my job with the police department. In regards to ALICE and the implementation of ALICE, I'm responsible for getting the information out, teaching people, explaining the pros and the cons, and just being there, guiding people through this.
Part of my role is to coordinate the readiness and emergency management for Arlington Public Schools. So I'm coordinating the rollout of ALICE for the schools in cooperation with the police department.
Great. And are all schools in Arlington implementing it? Which ones in specific are?
Well, eventually all of our schools will, but what we have learned from the implementation in other districts, it's important to begin the process with a couple of schools. So the training that we will be initiating this spring involves only 3 schools: the high school, middle school, and one of our elementary schools, Bishop. I don't know if you would like to hear a little bit more about what this training will look like as we go forward through this spring.
So we are beginning our ALICE rollout next Monday, April 6th, with a parent presentation. We're going to have 2 guest speakers, Michelle Gay from Safe and Sound Schools, who's also the mother of a victim of the Sandy Hook Elementary School tragedy, and Lieutenant Scott Sensabaugh from the Wilmington Police Department. After that, we're going to have 4 major events at the 3 schools where we're going to be rolling ALICE out this year. The first will be an intensive staff training for the high school staff, the Addison Middle School staff, and the Bishop Elementary School staff. The second thing we're going to do is offer a parent night so that the parents can experience the training as the staff and the students are experiencing, so they'll really understand what it is we're doing in the schools. The third event will be the student training. Those will all take place in May. In June, we will do our first official Arlington Public Schools ALICE drills at the Addison Middle School and at the high school, and again at Bishop Elementary School.
The plan is that next fall we will do the same sequence of events for the other elementary schools.
Okay, great. So eventually it's going to be on all,
Yes.
implemented in all schools. And now I'm curious, but why is this program coming to Arlington?
Well, This is the best thinking that we have currently for how to keep our children safe in schools in the probably the unlikely, but hopefully unlikely event that we would have an intruder. Prior to this program, all of our schools have been trained in lockdown procedures and shelter in place. But like many things, as our experience grows and our understanding evolves, this now is really the best practice for schools to implement. As Steve was saying, it really empowers not only our teachers, but empowers our students to act appropriately in a situation rather than be in a situation where they feel powerless and perhaps put themselves in more danger by remaining in their classrooms.
And what does this program actually involve?
Human beings have three basic responses to a bad situation: fight, flight, or freeze. The current procedures that we have now, the lockdown procedures, really only utilizes the freeze aspect of a human's reaction. We're all different. Some of us have type A personality, some of us want to get up and go, some of us want to freeze, and some of us want to fight. So Alice allows us to utilize all three of those reactions. So the plan would be, if there was a dangerous situation or an intruder in the school, we would get that information out any means necessary, whether that be over the intercom, email, radio, any way to get that out, any and all ways to get that out, we would get it out. The classroom, depending upon the age group, would then either look to the teacher or kind of act as a unit and make a decision. So they would take the information they had, where the intruder was, what they're wearing, where the closest exits are to their classroom, and they can make the decision, well, we can stay and barricade because the threat is too close and we'll be exposed to a greater risk if we leave this classroom now. So let's stay here and barricade the best we can. Or they can make the decision that, hey, this threat is on the other side of the building. By the time we get out of this classroom, down the hall and out the door, we're away. So we want these people, we want the faculty members, the students, we want everyone in these buildings to basically create as much time and space from the threat as possible, and that's what Alice does.
So, Inspector, I see that Alice has the word counter in it, in the acronym. Could you please explain that to some people who might be concerned of that word?
Yeah, so that seems to be the most controversial part of this. First and foremost, we're not even going to introduce that to levels K through 5. We will let the teachers know that it's an option and train them so they have everything they need to know. But the students are too young for that at that grade level. What counter is we're not asking anyone to leave the safety of a classroom potentially, or to avoid leaving the building and seek out a threat and try to neutralize the threat. Counter is simply a last ditch effort or a worst case scenario. If you're met with no other options, then why not create as much chaos and distraction as possible just to basically stay alive. I have kids, and I know if my kids were in a situation where they were met with that sort of threat, I wouldn't want them to sit on the floor with their backs against the wall. I would want them to do everything that they can. And history has shown that it's worked. I won't get into it too much, but Virginia Tech, it was a catastrophic event, and the people who simply locked down, and not to fault them, but that's the training that they had received then, they didn't fare very well. But the classrooms who fought back and went out windows and barricaded doors and did everything they could, most of them survived. Not all of them, but they fared better. So history has shown us that it's basically just, you have to get home at the end of the day. That's the mindset you have to have, is that you have to get home to your family. And you have to do everything and anything in your power to get out of that situation.
Great. And is there a particular difference that Alice has from the already existing safety protocols? I know you mentioned it a little bit, but is there any specific parts of the program?
Well, just the general discretion that people gain from Alice, whereas with a lockdown, they don't really have much discretion. The lockdown is called, and you go into a lockdown until you're told otherwise. Whereas Alice is a fluid thing. So just because the principal may give an announcement over the loudspeaker saying there's a threat here, we want that information to continue. We want to keep everybody informed. up to date, because information is power, right? So the more information and knowledge you have about a situation, the better you're going to be equipped to deal with that situation.
And how is this going to work in terms of schools? So are students and faculty going to have drills? How will they know what to do and what not to do in emergency situations?
Right, so we're going to train the faculty members, we're going to train the students. Where it varies a little bit is when you talk about the junior high school and the high school age students. We are actually going to train the kids, myself, Cindy, and our other ALICE trainers are going to train the students. When you get to elementary school, we're going to train the teachers, who are then going to teach the students. The teachers in elementary school know how to communicate with their students much better than I would walking into a second grade classroom. And it's going to be softer material, and we're going to leave some things out, like the counter aspect of this. We're not going to teach that to the students at the Bishop School, per se. But we're going to teach the teachers that, so at least they have that knowledge. But we're not going to encourage those young kids to take any action that would put themselves in harm's way.
Of course. And how would this program actually fit into the daily existing curriculum?
Well, the trainings will take place, again, as I said, this spring and then next fall for the remainder of the elementary schools. So our goal is to kind of work it into the fabric of what they understand as emergency responses to things just like fire drills. So it won't be part of the classroom curriculum on a regular basis, but for the first few years we'll be kind of doing what they probably did many, many years ago when they first started training in fire drills, to just try to implement it in a way that it really becomes kind of the fabric of their reactions and they understand this option-based response to an emergency situation.
And now that we spoke about this being implemented, once the training does begin and it's an established program, is there a way to monitor the progress of the ALICE program?
Yes, we go through drills every year, and there are a number of factors we look at. Certainly one of them is response time, communication, because one of the aspects of this program, which is really a little bit different than we've had with lockdowns and shelter in place, usually we announce the lockdown, but there's not any further communication. So we'll be making sure that every staff person in the building actually can hear what is being relayed. And we're also looking into other ways to communicate with staff through an emergency, because I'm sure that people are thinking, well, what if you can't use your system within the school? What backup systems do you have? And that certainly will be part of our planning going forward.
All right, and just as a general question, what are you hoping to receive out of implementing ALICE? I know it might be a little repetitive, but what are you planning? What do you want to achieve out of this program?
Well, ultimately, we want to put in place practices and protocols that are going to keep our students and staff safe. And as I said earlier, our thinking, and I mean this collectively, our country, and certainly in this area, has evolved. And we know that this process is going to save lives. Even when they have looked at recent tragedies and they go back and look at what if this had been in place, what would the differences have been in that situation. So we are confident that this will empower our students and staff to be able to act appropriately and safely in an emergency. And with any type of practice, you have to practice. If you don't do that and you don't have it built into the definite procedures of the school year, people can forget. So that is something that we will make sure we do as we do presently for lockdown, shelter in place, and fire drills.
Okay, and just to learn more about ALICE, are we adding more cameras to schools for increased safety, and how are we going? Like you did mention sending out emails and speaking over the radio and the principal making announcements, but what are the specific details that students and faculty should keep an eye or ear out for when such a situation has to occur?
Well, we certainly try to put more cameras in. And cameras will certainly be helpful, particularly the cameras that are within the building. because you want, part of this is to inform the staff as to where an intruder might be. But the other issue is how do we communicate from administration to staff when they're in their classrooms, because if for some reason we can't use the intercom system, there has to be another way, and we are looking into a couple of other ways that would involve teachers' phone or computers, laptops, iPads, so that we can continuously keep the stream of information flowing to teachers and staff people.
All right, and is this program costing anything for the town of Arlington, and is it mandatory for every student, faculty member, as well as parents to know?
Well, it will be, once we implement it, it will be mandatory that our staff and students participate in the drills. The cost is really the cost of time, because we're going to involve the police department, the fire department, and NEMLIC, which we are a member of, and have people at our sites when we do these drills. But in terms of cost, I suppose the main cost, what you were alluding to before, is what other kinds of hardware, software do we put in place to enhance communication and enhance ability to see what's happening at each one of the schools. So that is definitely a cost, but it's not a cost per se to Alice. It's certainly having us look at creating new communication systems, but we could go with what we currently have as well.
And so just to reiterate again, is the ALICE program, it's not going to add any sort of cost to the already existing safety protocols that schools have established?
No, this is going to be part of our system, and I think that Cindy could talk to actually what that looks like on a yearly basis.
So we'll be doing drills, again, just like the fire department does drills, and it will be a cost of time for staff. And once we start rolling that out and people become more accustomed to the drills, we may need fewer personnel. The first few drills will have a much larger presence of personnel, because it will really also be part of the initial training. But as the years go by, I think that the need for many bodies kind of helping us with the drills will diminish.
All right, and from my understanding, you are going to have an information session for parents.
Yes.
Why do you think it's important to involve them?
Parents are always concerned about the safety of their children, and as parents sitting here, we understand that. It's important that they understand what the expectations are in the schools, what experiences their children will be experiencing, and also I think that we've done a very good job over the last few years of not having these drills that we do for lockdown and shelter in place have students become anxious. But I think that whenever you change and you expand what you're doing, there's a level of anxiousness that will happen with students. And so having parents informed as well will be partners with us in having us work with the students to allay their concerns, but at the same time impart to them how important and serious this is.
Okay, and just curious, so now once this program you're going to begin training, so is ALICE going to be implemented like 24 hours a day, all days of the week, throughout the year? Is that something, or is it just during school hours? How is it going to work?
ALICE isn't something that is implemented 24 hours. It's a mindset, it's a way of thinking about how to react in an emergency that, yes, would be present in that sense. But the drills themselves will probably happen twice a year, once we go through the initial training. So as I said earlier, that all of our schools by late fall will have gone through this much more sequenced training that we have put in place for the spring.
And switching back to the parents, how do you think they're going to react to this new safety protocol that's being established and soon going to become mandatory for everyone?
Well, I've talked to a number of superintendents. We're not the first district in this area to move forward with ALICE, and it has been received very well. Particularly, I think, by having parents come in and be able to have an information session, which we will have on Monday evening, as well as the opportunity to experience, if they felt that that was important for them, what the training will be like for their children, I think helps inform them, allay their concerns as to what this will be. Parents want to help in whatever way they can to make sure to ensure the safety of their children, and so in that sense, we become partners with them in this new protocol.
Great, and you did mention about how the program's going to roll out. I have a question. Why did you choose a victim's mother, of the Sandy Hook victim, to speak, who's also now a safety advocate, to speak at this event?
Well, I think it's really important to remember that kind of the word or term victims doesn't come close to defining who Michelle Gay is. She has an extensive and impressive background in education. And after the tragedy at Sandy Hook Elementary School, she took her experience as both a parent, an educator, and a family member of a child who was killed during the incident, and co-founded Safe and Sound Schools. And she spent a lot of time trying to balance the necessity of readiness with the real fear of parents and creating anxiety around these kinds of drills. So she's done so much really great work and research that we felt that she would be such a great resource for us, not just to present to the parents why she believes that this is the way to go, but also then to help us roll it out in a way that doesn't create any fear, because no school exercise should ever create fear in a child or their parents. So we thought she would be a terrific guest to really help us initially present this, and again to then continue to roll it out in Arlington. Because the last thing we want to do is create fear, but we do want to be ready. We do want our students and staff to be ready in case of an emergency, and that's really just the responsible thing to do as any school district.
And to sort of wrap things up with the ALICE program, are you going to have more counseling for students? I know that's one part of the things that you do, but additional counseling?
Our staff that's already trained in crisis response will also be kind of on call after these initial trainings and drills to recognize if there is any increased anxiety around this. So we'll be very careful, especially with our more vulnerable populations, to be able to identify that. So everybody that'll be part of the staff training, is to make sure that we're identifying that, and also the debriefing that will take place after each training, after each drill. We'll be very cautious as we move forward.
Great, and now are there any events or sessions that parents, students, and faculty members should keep an eye out for in the near future?
Well, the first is the overview that we were just talking about that's going to happen next Monday evening at 7 o'clock in the high school. We will have trainings for parents at the different schools, but we will be sending that out via email to them. We haven't set the exact dates yet. Well, actually, we pretty much do, but that will be sent out to parents via email. But the main event is this coming Monday evening. We're holding it at the high school because there are 900 seats there. And this is for all parents in the district to come and have an overview and understand the rationale for why the district is moving forward with this.
Right, and if students or parents or even faculty members have any sort of questions or concerns about ALICE or safety protocols in general, how will they contact and who should they contact?
Well, this process is going to be completely transparent. If a student or a parent or a faculty member has a question, we want that question to be answered. We don't want any secrets. They can contact myself or Cindy, and we will get back to them as soon as possible.
Okay, great. And I would really like to thank all three of you for coming into the studio today, taking time out of your busy schedules to talk about ALICE especially, and safety protocols in general, which is of growing importance to every household here. If you would like even more information, please be sure to attend the ALICE implementation and school safety presentation at Arlington High School on April 6th at 7 p.m. On behalf of Dr. Bodie, Officer Porcello, and Ms. Sheridan Curran, I want to thank you for joining us. For Arlington Public News, I'm Akriti Jagmohan.